This segment is sponsored by Michigan Auto Law. Let's talk about auto insurance. If you're a Michigan resident driving on Michigan roadways, you have to maintain valid no-fault auto insurance coverage on your vehicle. How much insurance and the kind of coverage you get, well, that's a decision you have to make. Attorney Brandon Hewitt is here from Michigan Auto Law to help us sort it all out. Hi, Brandon.
Hi, Catherine.
I used to think if you drove an old clunker, you got the cheapest coverage. If you had a newer vehicle, you went for full coverage because that was a smarter thing to do. But it's not quite that simple, is it?
It's really not. We talk to a lot of people and they say, well, I have full coverage. Well, it doesn't really necessarily mean what you think it means. So there is a big difference between PLPD and what people think of full coverage. But then there's actually a big difference between what people think is full coverage and what actually is full coverage. So PLPD, for example, that is what you thought, right? That's the coverage on the old clunker. You get in an accident, your insurance is not going to take care of your vehicle. You're just out of luck. Okay. So people opt for what they say is full coverage, and that does take care of your vehicle. Your insurance is going to pay for your vehicle, which is great. But there are some things that are possibly and likely going to be left out, even if you quote unquote, you opt for full coverage.
Well, let's dive in a little bit more on this. First, we'll do PLPD. What exactly is it, and what's it covering?
So it technically stands for personal liability and property damage. So it basically meets the minimum requirements that you need to drive a vehicle on the road in Michigan. So it's going to cover up to $250,000 in liability coverage. That's the default in Michigan. You can opt in lower than that, but then you're taking a huge risk if you hurt somebody in an accident that you don't have enough coverage to take care of their damages. And then it's also going to take care of property damage if you damage somebody else's vehicle or property in or out of state. But again, it leaves you with no coverage for yourself, essentially.
So let's talk about things like medical bills or lost wages or, pain and suffering. What happens with PLPD?
So PLPD and full coverage are going to include what we consider no-fault coverage for your medical bills. If you include those on your coverage, again, Michigan changed their law a couple of years ago that you can pick different amounts of your coverage. It's going to pay your lost wages, so that doesn't matter if you have PLPD or full coverage. But again, you're going to see a difference between full coverage and PLPD in property and what you might owe to somebody else if you caused the accident.
Okay, let's dig in a little deeper on that full coverage then. If I've got a newer vehicle, is it automatic that I should go for full coverage?
Yes. The short answer is yes. You should cover your vehicle to the highest limit possible, because you don't want to, especially if you owe a loan on that or you're leasing the vehicle, you don't want to owe money if the insurance company doesn't give you enough to cover your damages. You want to make sure you have enough coverage there. But also you want to opt in for things like uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage that people think that they have on full coverage, and that protects you in case somebody hits you who doesn't have enough insurance. You're going to want to get coverage for your mini tort protection so that you're not out your deductible, that $3,000 that you might owe to somebody else if they caused the crash. So the best advice here is really to talk to your insurance agent, not just tell them that you want full coverage versus PLPD, but that you want to be protected as much as possible, not only if you cause a crash, but if somebody else causes a crash that doesn't necessarily have enough insurance. So ask for full coverage plus everything else.
Because you're not just insuring the car should damage occur. It is so much more than that. And I think sometimes people just don't even think about that stuff, right?
That's right. When people call us and they've been injured, they have no idea where they're going to get their medical bills from. Michigan used to have unlimited medical coverage no matter what kind of coverage you got for your vehicle. Now that coverage can be limited to $50,000, $250,000, $500,000. There's all kinds of different choices out there, and you don't know what you have a lot of times until you get in that crash, and then it's too late to change it at that point. So, the best idea here is call us. We'll talk to you. We'll look at your coverage page. We'll tell you what you have or what you don't have. Or call an independent insurance agent and ask them, just really, make sure, especially for what I have, if I have children, if I have a spouse, if I have, a home or a business that I need to protect or need to protect myself or somebody else, just make sure that you have enough, not just the cheapest coverage that you can get. You want the best coverage you can get.
For sure. Okay. Well, folks, if you want to contact Brandon, you can find all his information, michiganautolaw.com. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you so much.